Football happy hour continuing here on CBS Sports HQ, and Texas A&M's Isaiah Spiller headlines the running back class for the 2022 draft. Spiller pegged as a second-round player according to the draft rankings over on CBSSports.com. The junior averaging 5.6 yards per carry as he rushed for over 1,000 yards and 6 scores last season. Aggies went 8-4. They finished 5th in the SEC West. They were chasing their first 10-win season since 2012, but lost 2 of their last 3 games. Iowa State's Breece Hall not far behind him as the 53rd ranked player overall. Kenneth Walker III from Michigan State comes in at 66. Kyron Williams from Notre Dame. And then we have Kendrick Brooks from Oklahoma rounding out the top 5 in our running back rankings. And for more on the running back class, let's welcome in NFL mock draft mavens Chris Trapasso, and welcome back our Ryan Wilson. Gentlemen, you've been doing mock drafts for months now, and those first round mocks are devoid of running backs. Now, I don't want to call this a bad running back class, but maybe it's more about value at this point. So, Ryan, when you look at Isaiah Spiller, what type of offense do you think would suit his abilities?
Any offense, Jeremy. Here's the thing about this running backs class. It reminds me of 2 years ago where Clyde Edwards-Helaire snuck it in the bottom of the first round. But at the end of the day, there was a group of 5 guys that went in round 2. Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, among them Cam Akers, who just won a Super Bowl. And I think that's what we're going to see happen with this class. Isaiah Spiller came into this year as their number 1 running back, and he had a good season. It's just like, as you mentioned, there isn't much value in the running back position. I had him going in round 1 in those early mock drafts in September, probably even October. But he's since fallen out because you can get him in round 2, and he can be a great player. He runs the ball extremely hard, but he's also a huge asset in the pass game, and I think that dichotomy is what NFL teams are looking for, because sometimes these running backs come out without a lot of receptions. It turns out they're good receivers. They just weren't asked to do that in their college offenses. So I think Isaiah Spiller, his versatility is what makes him so important. He runs incredibly hard with the ball. A one-cut-and-go guy. He can make guys miss. You're not going to arm tackle him. A lot of the same things we'll hear about these big running backs. But he had a really good season at Texas A&M, had a better season last year, but that shouldn't take away from the type of player he's going to be in the NFL.
Yeah, and how about the fact that Isaiah Spiller had 3 seasons at Texas A&M, averaging right around 5.5 yards per carry. This is not a one-season kind of standout in the SEC. And like Ryan said, to have the ability to line up in the slot, run routes, make difficult catches down the sideline, contorting his body. Watch the Colorado game. Isaiah Spiller was probably the most reliable receiver for the Aggies in that contest, and he doesn't turn 21 until August. So the team that ultimately drafts him, like Ryan said, probably in the second round, is getting a very young player on that rookie contract.
And the fact that he can fit anywhere, as Ryan said, certainly a big plus for him. Breece Hall, let's talk about him. He ran for just shy of 1,500 yards in 2021 as Iowa State finished 4th in the Big 12. PFF compares him to Kevin Smith, and his elusiveness is power is among the best in the FBS. No player has more broken tackles over the last 3 seasons. Chris, what impresses you most about a guy like Hall as he goes to the next level?
Just that he's the complete running back. To watch his film and find a flaw, I think you're kind of fooling yourself, because there really is not a clear-cut flaw to his game. If I do have to pick one, the fact that he's not incredibly fast. I don't think in the NFL he's going to hit a lot of 60 and 70-yard runs. But in terms of his contact balance, his vision, the fact that he was really productive in the past 2 seasons at Iowa State, over 1,500 yards in 2020, over 1,400 yards this past season. He is a pretty good receiver, too. Had over 80 catches in his college career. I don't know if he's the same type of athlete as Isaiah Spiller is, being able to line up in the slot. But in the screen game, he's very useful. Just a big boulder of a running back. Kind of reminds me of Melvin Gordon, who you know is going to come into the NFL and hit the ground running.
Yeah, so Traps mentioned that he's not going to rip off a lot of 80-yard runs, but he was 10th in FBS in terms of 15-plus yard runs. He had 22 of those runs, and that certainly gets your attention. Traps also talked about his ability to catch the ball. Had 37 receptions last season, 1 drop. And by the way, he played in an offense where Brock Purdy made a habit of throwing the ball either way over his receivers' heads or short hopping the receiver, taking sacks. So he was basically the offense back there. I wish I saw more from Brock Purdy. He just refused to do it. And I love Breece Hall's game. It's okay if he runs a 4.65 or whatever in the combine. That's not what he does best, but he is so incredibly difficult to bring down, and he will fit immediately in any offense, in part because, as we're talking about here, he can catch the football. We know he can run it, but that versatility, it continues to be important, and NFL teams continue to look for it.
194 broken tackles, most in the FBS over the past 3 seasons. Michigan State running back Kenneth Walker is third in our rankings, but is a projected second-round guy. Walker really seems like the complete package here, Ryan, when you look at him, his measurements, and his numbers.
Kenneth Walker will probably end up being my running back one. I'll be interested to hear what Traps thinks and how he ends up in our aggregate rankings at CBS Sports. Transferred from Wake Forest, wasn't used much in the pass game. This could be a recurring theme, by the way. He was targeted a lot in the pass game at Michigan State. But again, you can't tackle this guy. Some of the things he was able to do with the ball in his hands defied logic, and we knew what he was going to do when he got the football. He just runs through guys. He runs through arm tackles. He was a revelation on that Michigan State team and a huge part of that offense. And while he was good at Wake Forest, I don't think anyone expected him to break out the way he did. You could say a one-year wonder type player. I think he was more than that. And by the way, one-year wonder, you can also translate as running back to fewer miles, which is what you want once you arrive at the NFL. Some of these running backs arrive with thousands of carries, it feels like, and that shortens their NFL career. Kenneth Walker has a chance to be a really good football player, and for me, he feels like those second-round guys I was talking about from 2 years ago who can come in and contribute right away as a second-rounder. I love his game. I love what he did, and I think he made himself a lot of money, as we like to say, based on his 21 season.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker is my running back 2 in this draft class, right behind Isaiah Spiller. He gives you a lot of what Isaiah Spiller does, in that he's very difficult to bring to the turf. I love his contact balance. There's a lot of effortless power to his game, that he's constantly delivering hits at the second level and falling forward. And I think from this breakout season in 2021 at Michigan State, people lose sight of the fact that he averaged over 6 yards per carry in his freshman season at Wake Forest in 2019. So this is not just a revelation that was in a perfect scenario with the Spartans. Not going to be a great receiver, but everything else that you want from a feature back, Kenneth Walker can give to you.
The Doak Walker Award winner for 2021 is the top running back in college football. Ryan, you have him as your top running back. Chris, you have him as your number 2. He's number 3 on the composite rankings. All of our mock draft guys, we put all the rankings together, and that's where we're getting this top 5 from. Okay, so at number 4, we go to Kyron Williams out of Notre Dame. A guy with great hands and who likes to stick his nose in and do some run blocking, really likes to run block. His report says he runs a mean angle route, Ryan, as the 4th-ranked running back in the class. Are you satisfied with that, or could he move up?
That feels about right. 3 or 4. I mean, these running backs are so similar, Jeremy, in terms of the way they play. They're built low to the ground, thick lower half, sort of the J.K. Dobbins mold, and they're one-cut-and-go guys. They can make guys miss in space. They can make defenders miss in the backfield, and then instead of losing 1 or 2 yards, gain 3 or 4 yards. That's exactly what you want. And by the way, if you have a running back who loves to block, that means you can play on third down immediately in the NFL, and that's one of the toughest transitions for running backs when they get from college to the NFL. They understand how to hit the hole. They understand what to do with the ball in their hands. It's the running the routes and the pass blocking, and Kyron Williams has both those things on lock based on the way he played last year. Again, another incredible, fun running back to watch, explosive, translates immediately to the next level, and if you can run block, you're going to play sooner rather than later in the NFL.
Of any of these running backs, Kyron Williams has the best feet. I think in terms of making a defender miss, if there's a blitzing linebacker, I would trust Kyron Williams to make him miss with a nasty jump cut in the hole, more so than Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, any other back in this class. Very, very agile, and that's important. That's what you need from a running back today. You have to be able to be elusive, make defenders miss, and get more out of what's blocked for you. And I think Kyron Williams, with over 1,000 yards in 2020, almost got there to the 1,000-yard threshold in 2021 for Notre Dame. And he's powerful because he is built low to the ground. There's a lot of low center of gravity power to his game. And I love that he's a good receiver. In the screen game, his vision is outstanding. He reads those blocks as they're materializing, and just being elusive and having some power, that's the combination you want out of a modern-day running back.
All right, let's finish off the top 5 by talking about Kennedy Brooks out of Oklahoma. Almost 200 attempts, almost 1,250 yards. What do you make of Brooks as he heads to the pros, Chris?
He's the most unique running back in this draft class because he's not a crazy athlete. There's not a lot of explosion to his game. And he's unique also in that he's faster than he is quick. We normally hear it the other way around, that guys are kind of quick, but they're not really fast down the field. When Kennedy Brooks finds a hole, he can turn into a track star down the field. Watch that Texas game where he scored that almost walk-off touchdown the last seconds of that contest. Made one cut, saw a hole, and then hit the Jets. And what I also like about his game, the best contact balance of any running back in this class, in a group that has a lot of bigger backs that absorb hits and continue forward. It's really, really rare to see Kendrick Brooks take a hit and then fall to the turf. He's constantly staying on balance, continuing forward, and quietly had 3 seasons over 1,000 yards at Oklahoma from 2018 on.
All right, lastly, we're still a ways away from the 2022 NFL Draft. I know you both have been up late nights getting ready for the NFL Combine, which is coming up. Ryan, give me a running back that you would pick to climb up the draft rankings.
So here's a name to keep an eye on, Jeremy. Rashod White at Arizona State. He's a tall running back. We don't have a lot of tall running backs. We've heard Traps talk about Kendrick Brooks, but typically the guys we were talking about are sub 6 feet. And he runs upright. That gets your attention. You don't like that as a running back. He's really raw as a running back. He had 43 receptions last season after only having 8 the year before that. And here's my comp for Rashod White. Cordero Patterson. Like, he is that type of player. He can run from behind the line of scrimmage. He can get him out in space. He can be a threat catching the football. And I like the versatility he provides because he can do a little bit of everything. He can get better as a running back. He can get better as a wide receiver. And I think you have to understand that when you draft him, you can't take him, in the 2nd round and expect him to come in and be Adrian Peterson. But you can take him on day 3 and get a guy who can do a lot of things, much the same way Patterson did coming out of Tennessee, where he was a multi-level threat.
Yeah, Ryan stole my pick there. I love Rashod White. He's a draft crush of mine. I'll go with Ty Chandler from North Carolina. And my comparison for him is 2 former North Carolina Tar Heel running backs, Gio Bernard and most recently Michael Carter, who went in the 4th round to the Jets and really flashed as a rookie later in the season. Talk about someone with lightning quick feet, suddenness, change of direction ability that's not really powerful, but it's just really hard to corral him in the open field because he's so sudden. Ty Chandler was at Tennessee for 4 seasons, decently productive there, was never in a feature back role, transferred to North Carolina, took advantage of the COVID regulations where you could get that final season, and went over 1,000 yards with 13 touchdowns for the Tar Heels. He's someone, too, feel like you can get him 4th, 5th, or 6th round, and we'll be talking about him in September, October, November, standing in for an injured starter and being very productive.
They are 2 of the mock draft brain trust here at CBS Sports HQ, Ryan Wilson and Chris Trapasso. Thanks for hopping on with us, gentlemen. Good to see you both. And in terms of Ryan Wilson's mock drafts, of course, you can see those each and every week up on CBSSports.com. Here is the latest top 10. Ikem Ekwonu is sitting at number 1, the offensive lineman out of NC State. Ryan has him going to the Jaguars. Aiden Hutchinson at number 2 to the Lions. Kayvon Thibodeau to the Texans, and Evan Neal to the Jets. And Charles Cross rounding out the New York contingent there at 4 and 5 has him going to the Giants.